Good morning, class. So I'm just going to have to record the presentation today because I'm not feeling well. But the cool thing about this is that we are done drawing with regular pencils. So as far as drawing is concerned, so we're going to do something new this week, which will be pretty cool for you guys. So you guys learn how to draw things like following the drawing process. So starting with the observing, drawing the outside or the biggest shape and working your way to the inside, value, texture. You also learn how to draw things, make them look three-dimensional by using the technique of drawing perspective. So now we're going to move on to something completely different, which is working with charcoal, which is a much different experience. But before we get to that, guys, we're going to talk about really one of the main reasons why people make artwork. So really our main objective today is to focus on visual art as a way to record information about the world around you. And also I want you guys to understand that art looks different over time. So the artwork that you guys make now is going to look different from the artwork that was made, a couple hundred years ago, thousands of years ago, which is what we'll take a look at today. Because we've learned technical skills, so skills and techniques and ways to be able to teach people to draw better and make better artwork and communicate better. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So we're going to get this thing started with an opening question. And there's a worksheet that you'll follow along with during this presentation. So I'll let you know when a question's coming up or what slide it's on. And then I'll also collect that worksheet when I come in, when I feel better. So if you look at these 5 images, so the one top left, which is African artwork, the one to the right of it, which is Japanese artwork, the one to the top right, so the right of that, which is Indian, bottom left, which is cave art, which is what we'll take a look at today, and then bottom right, which is Jewish artwork. So first of all, this artwork, these pieces come from different cultures, so vastly different cultures, different time periods. So even the one bottom left, which is cave artwork, which is from Europe, is also about 2,000 years old. So all of these images represent different cultures, different times, different experiences. So with that being said, if you look at your first question for the opening slide, so on that worksheet, the first question is, why do you think it's important that people tell or pass down stories? So again, why do you think it's important that people tell or pass down stories? So I would actually like for you guys to talk this out a little bit. Just get an idea from a classmate and then write down an answer. So just take about 30 seconds. Yes, you're going to have to talk. Take about 30 seconds to talk this through with a classmate and then write down your answer. So I'll give you guys about 30 seconds. All right, that's 30. So let's bring it back for a second, guys. So think about maybe in the answers that you guys said. It could possibly be the fact that it's important to be able to tell stories or pass these things down because if someone doesn't tell you, you wouldn't know. So especially if you existed in a time where there was obviously no TV or internet or other media to communicate in that way, hearing a story from a relative or seeing that story, so from a visual standpoint, if someone drew it out, that would be the only way you would know. So it's also important to be able to hear these stories because it lets you know what's happening in different cultures, different environments. It's a way for you to be able to see the world around you. So the idea of being able to see these stories and pass them down is extremely important to us as people because it's the way that we represent the world around us. So moving on to the next slide here. So we're going to talk about prehistoric cave paintings. At a cave in Europe. So Lascaux is the name of that cave. So we're going to look at those specific cave paintings and how that relates to you. Because again, our number one goal is to help you understand the fact that artwork is a way to be able to record information about the world around you, and that's extremely important to us as a people. So, cave paintings, which is the prehistoric novel. So, if you look at question number 2, this is actually going to relate to that. So, man has passed down its history and stories in many different ways. So, visual art and stories is one of those ways people have recorded history. So again, visual art and stories is one of those ways people have recorded history. And we'll explore cave paintings today as the prehistoric way of recording important events. So if you look at question number 2 for you guys, that question is mankind has passed down its history through the use of what? And that's what you'll find on this slide. So if you look at this image on the right side, clearly that's an historic image representing Japan. But if you look at this one here on the left, when you look at these two images, vastly different. This applies to question number 3 for you guys. So when you look at these two images and compare them, what differences do you notice about the quality or characteristics of the image? Again, that question is, what differences do you notice about the quality or characteristics of the images? So, I mean, think of like, why do these differences exist? So, you can talk it out with a partner. I'll give you about, 15 to 20 seconds. Again, you can talk. So, I'll give you a few seconds to talk it out and then write down the answer that you think fits. So, take your time. All right, there we go. So when you look at these two images and compare them, think about things you could have written down. So did you write down anything as far as the image on the left being flat? Did you write down anything on the right as far as the image having, details, color, texture? So those are some examples of things that are different, but there's other things you could have written down too as well, because they are vastly different in the way that they're set up. But either way, both images have enough information where you have a sense of what's going on, even if you're not sure exactly what it is. You do have a sense of what's going on as far as the idea of it telling a story or representing a specific place and time. So moving on. So we're going to look at the Lascaux Caves. So on September 12th, 1944, teenagers stumbled upon a major discovery. When an old pine tree fell down, it showed a hole in the ground under its roots. If you look at the image on the right, clearly those guys are not teenagers, so that's an image of them where they went to reenact that scene. So they're a lot older, they're old men in that photograph. But moving on, the teenagers discovered the hole, went down inside of it, and found the historic cave paintings at Lascaux. So it's thought that these paintings have been done originally more than 2,000 years ago. So if you look at the image bottom right, so those are actually prints from the cave system. So obviously it looks like something you would have done in elementary school or middle school. But the fact of the matter is that these people are trying to represent their daily lives, and so it wasn't necessarily made to make these beautiful drawings that you might do in a class like you're in now, but they just want to represent their current place and time, and so to be able to tell these stories once they've passed. But if you look at question number 4, this applies to this slide. So why is it important to us as Christians that these cave paintings are a few thousand years old instead of millions of years? So think about that for a second. So I'm going to read it again. But why is it important to us as Christians that these cave paintings are a few thousand years old instead of millions of years? So think about that. So think about maybe, especially for those of you who did not go to a Christian school before high school, and you may have heard different things in science classes or in history classes. So think about why that's important, that again, that it's 2,000 years old instead of millions. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to write that down, so about 10 seconds. All right, we'll keep it moving. So here's the actual cave system. So this is a illustration of that. So over the next few years, so after those teenagers discovered that cave, the caves were explored and several separate themes and caves were found. There's several themes, but the major theme we'll take a look at today is the Great Hall of Bulls. On your final exam, you'll have to recognize images, and for cave artwork, the Hall of Bulls is the image you recognize. So that's that large cave system on near the top of that illustration. So that's the largest cave system. There's several of them, but that's the main one we'll focus on, as we'll see in the next slide. So this is the actual image you'll recognize on your exam, but this is a painting from the Hall of Bulls at Lascaux. And so when you think of painting, this looks really, really simplistic. It looks like something that you could have done when you were in preschool or in elementary school. So there's only a little bit of detail. There's not a lot of value, aka shading, or space or texture in anything that would make this very, very specific. Well, here's the deal. So these people, again, didn't have the technical skill to back it up. It's not like they could take classes. So these are what we call icons. And an icon is any like symbol or logo used to represent a person, place, or thing. You've seen a bunch of icons and you probably don't even realize it. So think about, say, for example, like the McDonald's logo or any major logo that you've seen in your life. The Nike swoosh, that's an icon. An emoji, so like the smiley face or sad face that you see, that's an icon. So it's any symbol that's used to represent something. So even if you were to draw a tree, you'd probably just draw a rectangle with a couple bumps on the top. Or if you were drawing an apple, you'd probably draw just a shape that has a curve and then a stem or a leaf, but that doesn't look exactly like an apple. So they just focus on the icons of shapes to quickly tell a story and represent, again, their current place or time, which is a little bit different from a lot of things that we do now as far as a drawing class or drawing skills. So if you look at this image, so again, going back to the idea of an icon meaning a symbol or a logo that represents something, take a look at this image and guess what you see. So discuss it with a partner. Like what icon or what object or animal is being represented here. So discuss it with a partner. So I'll give you guys roughly about 10 to 15 seconds. So discuss it with a partner. What do you see? Because it doesn't look exactly like something, but it does represent it. All right, that is time. So we're going to bring it back. We're going to move on to the next slide. So you might have seen horses in the background or a bull, which looks like it's actually being hit in the leg with either an arrow or spear. But because they're just icons, and it's not a ton of detail, you can't tell what necessarily whether that is an arrow or spear or where those animals are, because again, it's just those generic shapes that represent it. So this image here applies to your next question. So question number 5. So there are a couple of themes that we see, or 3 to be exact, that we see in all artwork, no matter what the image is. A lot of cave paintings have very similar themes because these people did very similar things every day. So it's not like they have the options that we have now. But those 3 major themes are animals. So you typically see that in almost every cave painting. Human representations and signs and weapons. So please write that down for number 5. So what major themes, aka subject matter, did cave paintings have? And so write down those 3 things again: animals, human representations, and then signs/weapons. So the key word there is human representations, and that's important because these things did not look like people exactly. So they look like stick figures, again, stuff that you probably did in preschool or 1st or 2nd grade. So very, very simple drawings. They're just silhouettes, just meaning the generic shape. But because, of course, if you don't have the skill set to back it up, you just want to try to represent something. So again, just the icon of what something looked like. Because these are icons and not a detailed drawing, it's hard to tell exactly what animals these are. Again, these caves are in Europe, or France to be exact. But we don't know exactly, animals that change continents during the time or when the continents were connected. You don't know exactly what again, animal groups may have been there. So I know someone said, "Oh, it looks like a gazelle," or they thought they saw like a giraffe, or elephant or things of that nature. I'm assuming it's not those animals that are in there, but I'm assuming the one that's top left is at least a warthog. If you were trying to guess what these things are, you might not be able to tell, but you at least get a sense, again, just because they're generic shapes. So going back to this, again, you can't tell exactly what these things are. I'm gonna have you guys take a look at this image here, and then try to guess what you think you see, because again, it's just a representation, so it's hard to tell exactly what it is. So again, 10 to 15 seconds. So discuss this with the partner, again, meaning you'll have to talk a little bit, but discuss it with a partner what you think you see in this image. Alrighty. So we do see people. That's like the tan silhouettes, or kind of like that. It's like a bronze or orange color. So we also see animals. So the white shapes, which looks like almost like an ostrich, with this big large mass in the middle and the skinny long necks. But who knows? Because again, it's just representation. And then the other thing you'll see is spears and weapons. So if you look at the figures there, so again, kind of like the brown, tan type of shapes. It looks like they're holding a spear in their hands, but again, it's so generic, it's so simple, it's kind of hard to tell exactly what's going on. You just get a sense or feel of what it represents. So before we move on to the next slide, one reason we're looking at cave art is because you guys are moving on to charcoal. For those of you who have never used charcoal before, charcoal basically it's like a powder. It's super messy, gets all over the place, and that's how they paint it. So it's what we call a pigment. A pigment is like a bunch of powder that normally holds a color. So in our case, charcoal is black. But if you look at like there, we have like that tannish color, which kind of looks like almost like a lighter orange red, and also the white, which is they painted just using a bunch of pigment, which is like ground up minerals, and really that's what charcoal is, and that's what we're going to use to do our drawing. So it's a very similar medium or process that we'll use too as well, but of course your drawings should look better than that. At least I hope so. So if you look at this image, kind of discuss with a partner what you see in this thing before we move into our last question here. Because this is just an icon and they're representing things, you might not be able to tell exactly what this is. So I'm going to have you guys discuss what you see in the image and then discuss what you think is going on. Again, let me say that one more time. So with a partner, discuss what you see in the image. So state like the objects or things that you see, and then state what you think is going on. So I'll give you guys about 20 seconds or so to discuss this. All right, that's 20. So personally, what I believe, so this is not done well in the sense where you can't really tell where they're at or what's going on. Like what I thought possibly was that these hunters, obviously they have bow and arrows, you can tell they're people, but I thought they were actually running the deer off a cliff, is in so kind of basically flanking them and getting them around off a cliff, so it's easier to hunt them. So the ones they don't hit with arrows, they can still kill and use the meat and bones and all and skin and all that good stuff. Some students might just see it just on a flat area. And the reason why I say a cliff is because of that small area, so that dark area you see on the far left. But because you can't tell exactly what the space is, and there's not a ton of detail, it's hard to tell exactly where the environment is. And again, goes back to the idea of them just representing just the place and time in the story, but without a using the skill set that you currently have right now. So now the last question on your worksheet. So if you look at the last painting on the left and compare them to the paintings on the right, what differences do you notice in the use of line? So art elements such as line, shape, color, value, texture, and space. So again, compare the images on the left to the images on the right, and then write down some of the differences you see in the art elements. So art elements are what we use to make art. So write down some of the differences you see in line, shape, color, value, texture, and space. So I'll give you probably a little over 30 seconds, should be enough time to kind of write down some of these differences you see. So I'll give you that time, and then we will move on to the end. All right, class. That's 30. So the last two questions that relate to this presentation are opinion questions, and you can take your time to write those down. And where the two questions are, if you're creating a painting to show the environment around you, what would you include? Because again, a huge part of art is representing the culture or the environment or the time and place something was made. And clearly, if you were to make artwork right now representing your environment, your culture, your lifestyle, it's going to look different from the artwork that's on the screen. So please answer that question. If you were creating a painting to show the environment around you, or I guess a drawing in your case, what would you include? And the second question is, how would your painting, or again, drawing in your case, differ from the cave paintings at Lascaux? So think about those paintings at Lascaux. They did not have a ton of detail. They were mostly icons, meaning just a symbol to represent something. They didn't have a lot of value or texture. You couldn't tell exactly what was going on with the space. They were a lot more flat. So think about how your drawing, representing your own environment or culture, would differ from those. So that question's important, and the reason why is because, or those questions, those last two, because you're going to take a piece of charcoal from the counter, and for the remainder of class, I would like for you to represent what you wrote down. So again, if you were creating a drawing to show the environment around you, what would you include? And in your sketchbook, with the charcoal, you're going to try to represent something or some part of your life or your environment. That's important because not only does artwork represent the world around you, but it represents your own personal life. Because again, every single time you step through that door, you are an artist. And also this will give you a chance to get a feel for charcoal, so again, how messy it is, or and how different it is from working with a standard pencil. So you'll grab a piece of charcoal from the counter after you finish those two questions, and then for the second half of class, you're going to work on a drawing of your own in your sketchbook using that charcoal. So, and then tomorrow we'll actually learn how to use drawing techniques to draw well with charcoal. So just like any other thing that we've done in class. So again, you have the remainder of class to do that. When you do finish drawing, if you do have charcoal on your desk, please grab a blue rag from by the sink. Just use water and just wipe it off, just so that way you don't leave a mess for the students that are coming in after you. But again, that's what you're doing for the remainder of class. Again, according to the question that you have. So if you were creating a painting or drawing to show the environment around you, what would you include in your, and you're going to draw that in your sketchbook. All right, you guys have a great day, and I will see you hopefully tomorrow.